A pair of weekend games, and the Nashville Predators impress in one and fizzle in the other. What was the difference? We're going to tell you on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our week shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and, of course, our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support, and we love trudging through this really unbelievable season together. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, the Nashville Predators put on quite a show Saturday night in Smashville with an impressive come from behind victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we were like, okay. And then they went to St. Louis on Sunday and they couldn't win a game. And we were like, yeah, okay. So what is the difference? Why can't this Nashville Predators team put together consistent wins? So we're going to try to tackle that topic. We're going to recap the games and we're going to take a look at the week ahead as well. All right, Emma, we're going to try to maybe combine our one word to recap the game into maybe one word, which can be more than one word because our show, our rules, to recap the weekend games. Of course, the Nashville Predators won 5-2 over the Toronto Maple Leafs. How about them apples? And then, you're feeling good. Can't have that, friends. And then they lost 4-1 to the St. Louis Blues. So, Emma, if you had to describe those 24 hours in one word or less, that's FCC friendly, how would you describe what we saw this weekend?
Well, my one word is going to be three words, but technically like one proper term. But I'm going to go with Big Bad Wolf, because when I was a kid, I think I was 8 years old, I rode my first roller coaster, which was almost my last roller coaster because I really did not enjoy it. I was not into that. But it was the Big Bad Wolf at Busch Gardens, which I'm pretty sure does not exist anymore. They tore it down. Not Busch Gardens, but the ride itself does not exist anymore. And I remember, and I went with my dad, and he still tells the story that I guess we're, and you're like going up like the tick, I guess we got about halfway up and I looked at him and said, I don't want to do it anymore. And he said, it's too late. And so I just remember vividly this part in the ride where it's like this huge, dip down and you're going straight towards water. Like it looks like you're just going to plunge to your death in this water. And then at the last second, it just, immediately lifts up and scoops you out and you like barely miss the water. And that's what this weekend felt like. It was like, I'm flying high. Well, going into the Leafs, into the Leafs game, I'm about halfway up the roller coaster and I'm like, I don't want to do it. This is going to be bad. This is going to be scary. And then you start the ride, and that would be the Leafs game. You're like, okay, all right, this is kind of fun. And then you go to St. Louis and you start plummeting towards this body of water. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, I remember why I didn't want to do this now. And that's just kind of how this whole weekend has felt.
That's how this whole season has felt.
Also true.
Yeah. Is that the worst roller coaster you've ever ridden? Do you have one where you're like, oh, that's a hell no for me?
I'm going to be honest with you, because that was my first. I really didn't go on many more after that.
Yeah.
And
I don't
so
judge that.
After that, I had a strict. Now, the Big Bad Wolf did not have any, like, you didn't go upside down or anything like that. But I, in my life, never went on a roller coaster that went upside down because I just had no desire to do that. I think it was either the Big Bad Wolf, and then there was one. I think it was called Rebel Yell at
Sounds about
Kings.
right.
Yeah. It also did not go upside down, but it was like an old wooden roller coaster.
Those are the
And
worst.
yeah. And so it was like you could feel everything. I'm like, this does not feel safe at all. And it was just like a massive drop. And I don't do the big drops. I'm like, I don't enjoy that. So yeah, Big Bad Wolf was up there for sure.
The first one I ever went on was my senior class trip to Cedar Point. And somebody said, let's go on this one. And I thought, okay. And it was corkscrew upside down. And I don't even know that I stayed conscious for most of it. Not great. You and I are maybe not roller coaster people. Like
that's why this season has not been fun for us, among other reasons, but we are not roller coaster people.
Yeah, this is just not our jam. Yeah, these two games, like my one word is two words. My two words, down 2. In both of these games, Nashville was down 2 in both these weekend games versus Toronto. They technically almost looked like they were going to be down 3, but that third goal was played with a high stick and was called off. But they were down 2 versus St. Louis. They were down 2. The Toronto game, they came back and friends. I know you're not going to believe us if you didn't see the game, but trust us. Nashville scored 5 goals, 5 unanswered goals in one game. And then we went to St. Louis and Nashville was down 2. And you thought, doesn't matter. We're just setting ourselves up for the big jazz hands finish of a win. No, we weren't. No, Nashville scored 1 goal. 1 goal, friends. And we back to that. We back to 1 goal.
That's all we get per game. It's 1 goal per game. The hockey gods saw this 5 goals in a game business and they're like, easy there. You guys just had 3 goals in the last 4 games combined. What do you think you're doing going out and scoring 5 goals in one? So now we're back to our regularly scheduled programming of 1 goal per game. Although giving credit where it's due, beautiful goal from Filip Forsberg against on the power play. It was on the power play.
Yes.
And just chef's kiss, toe drag through the legs, like amazing. But apparently, used up all of our style points on that 1 goal, and then we didn't get any more.
Yeah, we were out of mojo, friends. We spent all our mojo in the Toronto game. It was interesting, Emma. I went back through the season and did my own unofficial examination of this. And so I went back and checked games that I felt like that you and I felt like were, quote, big games, big wins for Nashville. Friends, it didn't take me long because haven't been very many of them. But you go back on October 22nd, they got a 4-0 win over Boston. That was, by the way, their first win of the season. Then Nashville went 2-1-1 after that. November 2nd against the Colorado Avalanche, Nashville won 5-2. Oh, we're on a roll now, baby. No, we're not. They lost 3 in a row. They beat the Winnipeg Jets November 23rd. And Winnipeg, remember, at this time was exactly where they are now, on top of the world. Beat them 4-1. Look at us now. Better late than never. No, friends. They went 0-2-3 in the next 5 games. Beat Dallas 4-1 in December. They went 3-1-1 in the next 5 games. Now, January 14th, they beat the Vegas Golden Knights 5-2. That was like Jonathan Marchessault revenge game for, the team's like, oh, we won't embarrass you in front of your friends. And they did win 4 in a row. That was their 5-game win streak. February 22nd, they beat the Avs 2-1. They followed that up with a 7-4 loss against the New York Islanders. And then, of course, we had this great comeback game against Toronto. Oh, the shame, the shame. Hockey night in Canada, y'all got embarrassed in a town that has pedal taverns. And then we go and we lose in St. Louis. I mean, they drunk, Emma. I know that's not great hockey analysis, but friends.
We're out of, you cannot use great hockey analysis to describe whatever has befallen this team this year, because it is just, every time I am asked, I get asked a lot to go on the radio, podcast, TV, talking about the Predators in out of market, stations that when their teams are playing the Preds, and they're every time I'm like, I don't want to, because I know their first question is like, So Emma, what's going on with these guys this year? I'm like, I don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. And yeah, it's just like you said, it's drunk. It's like getting drunk and riding the non-existent big bad wolf is what this entire season feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been out of words for a while now, but it's tough.
It's tough. It is tough. Coming up, we are going to try to dive into why Nashville couldn't get it done, couldn't get back-to-back wins after so much momentum and goodwill built up in that Toronto game. We're going to tackle that. We're also going to talk about the youngins, the little sprouts. They showed up some this weekend. We'll talk about that. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Wonderful Pistachios. If you are looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious, you need to crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shell variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Actually grabbed some in the airport over the weekend, didn't make a mess on the airplane, and a great source of protein. But if you do love that crunch and that crack, you can get the in-shell option. It's a classic favorite as well. So friends, get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, Emma, we are digging into this particular weekend of consistent inconsistency, sort of the theme of the Nashville Predators season. And you look at what happened against this Toronto team. It was a really impressive win by the Nashville Predators. And in the post game, they talked about like, hey, we were down 2-0, but we still felt pretty good about our game. And they went on to score 5 goals to win that game. And then you go to St. Louis and they're down 2-0. And I think Nashville could have felt pretty good about their game, even then being down 2-0. But I'm wondering, is the difference when it comes to the St. Louis loss? You've got a team playing for their playoff lives versus a Nashville team who kind of already knows their fate is sealed. How much of the postseason weighs into that loss, which is interesting because Toronto is also a playoff team, but in a different position than St. Louis is. How much do you think that factors into St. Louis's push versus Nashville's push?
Oh, versus Nashville. Yeah, of course. St. Louis still has something to play for right now.
Mhm.
Nashville doesn't. I think if the question is how was Nashville able to beat Toronto and not St. Louis, even though they're both playoff teams. Well, I mean, yes, St. Louis is right now in the last wild card spot. So they are like certainly not locked into a playoff spot by any means. But Toronto, yes, they're locked into a spot. They don't know which one yet because it's pretty tight in the Atlantic, but still it's like it's Toronto. There's always that pressure on them.
Yeah.
And Hockey Night in Canada, they're on the road I don't think that alone, the playoff positioning would have that much to do with it. But I think, yeah, like what we saw, and I think this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about here with the young sprouts is on Saturday against Toronto, we saw a big push from the younger players with, yes, obviously the help of guys like Filip Forsberg, but the younger players who actually are playing for something right now. They're playing for their spot. They're playing on this team. They're playing not to get scratched every time they make a mistake. They are playing for, regular ice time in the NHL, and it's something that they are still trying to prove themselves. And like Filip Forsberg at this point, he doesn't need to prove himself, but you saw a little bit more of that And that energy, I think, that you get from those guys, those younger guys, is infectious, and it does kind of permeate throughout the team. You really didn't see much of that against St. Louis. And again, it's certainly not to put all the blame on the younger guys or take all the blame off of the younger guys. I think it's just, this is a situation, obviously, a little bit of travel involved. You're on the second half of a back-to-back, but I mean, so was St. Louis, and they still got it done. But the point being that I think, that situation is kind of when you need your veterans to step up, like the guys who've been around a little bit longer and, can kind of rally the troops. And we really didn't see that. I wouldn't say we didn't see it at all, but we did not see that with consistency. The first period, once again, was rough against St. Louis. It was not good. Went down 2-0, almost looked like 3-0, but then the goal got waved off because it was after the whistle. But then,
by the way, to all the St. Louis fans, I know that sucks. Imagine, if you will, having that happen in the Stanley Cup Finals. Sucks even more. But go ahead, Emma.
So I think that there is, you saw that first period, but again, they were down 2-0 after the first against Toronto too. So you're like, okay, all right, well, there's still a chance. And then they come back and, Forsberg scores the goal on the power play, and we're like, oh, we're cooking now.
Yep.
And then again, it was more of the too little too late, because you saw like Nashville outshot St. Louis like by almost double. It was insane. After the first period, I mean, I think they held St. Louis to just 3 shots in the second period. 3 shots, that's it. And I think that they looked really good in the second, but they fell apart in the third. And again, it's just that inconsistency that we have been seeing all year that keeps us from being able to pinpoint what the hell the problem is with this team, because we keep seeing different versions of it.
Right.
Like within games and from game to game, it's just, yeah.
I like what you're saying, and I hadn't thought about this, but I like what you're saying about like there is an energy, and we saw it, like you said, in the Toronto game from Svech, from Evangelista, and we're going to talk about them more in a minute. But when you then go to a back-to-back game, and this is Svech's first season, Vange has been around a little bit, but this is something that in talking to Zach LaRue, in talking to young players, one of the biggest adjustments is just the amount of games and the lack of recovery time as compared to the AHL. It's just very different. And so when you have a back-to-back and your young guns have come up great in one game, the veterans almost do have to carry that second game a little bit. They really do have to carry that second game a little bit. And I'm with you. I'm not saying, well, where were they? But can we just talk about this? And we just got to say this. God, go with Ryan O'Reilly. Because Ryan O'Reilly, and we've talked about this, you all have probably seen it in post games. Ryan O'Reilly is the most critical of himself. When you get a chance to go 4-on-4 and you're getting a power play, and then Ryan O'Reilly, of all people, trips a dude and goes to the box. I turned to my husband and I said, he is going to give himself the silent treatment for a week. Like, he will have no inner thoughts because he'll be like, shh, I'm not talking to you.
He is making himself, as we speak, he is walking home from St. Louis on his hands. That's a self-punishment. Uphill.
In the snow.
In the snow. And he's doing it. It's self-inflicted punishment because, I mean, like, honestly, he is gonna, like, oh my God, I don't even, he's probably got like a voodoo doll of himself that he's like stabbing over and over right now, because I'm like, he is so hard on himself. And usually we're like, okay, buddy, like, it really wasn't all your fault. But this one, I was like, yeah, that was pretty dumb.
Yeah,
probably not when you want to take a penalty. That was
that bad. And I do know that St. Louis and Toronto, like St. Louis, they are so stingy. They are so stingy defensively. And, so you are playing two very different teams. But I thought Nashville had a chance to win both of these games, and they could in one and they couldn't in another. And it, like you said, again, it is just a glaring consistent inconsistency issue. Andrew Brunette talked after the Toronto game, and I think these comments are very interesting, and they really stirred up something in my gut, Emma. He was talking about Luke Evangelista and the young players. So let's just hear from Bruno. This is, of course, after the 5-2 win over Toronto Saturday night at home.
Yeah, I hope it catapults him here a little bit where he builds on it and keeps it going. For him, Saturday night in Smashville, Hockey Night in Canada, being a Toronto kid, it's a big deal. So hopefully this gives him some confidence, a little mojo. Vange and these young guys, maybe they can, grab this a little bit and take off. You've been waiting for them to take that other step this year. So hopefully this ignites them a little bit.
Okay, Emma. When I heard that comment, my first thought was, when you healthy scratch Luke Evangelista, the only thing he is going to grab onto is a grilled cheese on the first floor at Bridgestone Arena. This was one of those comments where I was like, there is a dissonance for me.
It's not even just healthy scratching him, but like reducing his ice time, putting him down on the third line. Like, I don't know. It's like, hey, have you noticed that when they were on the 4-game win streak, and then when they beat Toronto, that Evangelista was on the top line and actually doing quite well? Like, It's, again, at this point in the season, it's really not about wins and losses anymore. I don't that's why we're not here breaking down every play in these games, because frankly it doesn't matter. What matters is trying to get something. You are running out of time here, and you are trying to find something that you can build on for next season, something that kind of tells you, okay, this is the problem, or these are the problems that we need to address in the off season. And right now it's like, it's just a big, just storm cloud of problems that you don't even know where to start. And I think it's hard because, again, like you said, it's like Brunette can't seem to get through to the veterans for whatever reason. He's also, not giving the young kids the chance. And then, you got the whole, and we're going to talk about this more on tomorrow's show, I know, but
we are.
The whole, like, okay, yes, people were upset that, oh no, we can't win games now because then we won't get a good draft pick. And now it's, oh, we can't win games now because then that will save Bruno's job. And it's like, at this point, it shouldn't, but honestly, it might. So I think we're going to talk about that more tomorrow, but I think it's a little tone deaf. Little tone deaf of him to say things like that. Like, hopefully he can grab onto that. And it's like, yeah, well, he probably also grabbed onto the crappy feeling he had when you benched him after one bad game. So
yeah. Here's what is so alarming to me, and set aside the record, the expectations, and there's a lot about those things that are alarming to me, but just those things aside, here is something that is so alarming to me about this season, and this is what makes me so concerned about Andrew Brunette, and you and I have given him a ton of grace, but here's where I'm at. I don't know any more about Luke Evangelista's game or potential this season than I did last season. Now, I know Vange has been out injured, but setting that aside, the way that he has been utilized has not revealed any more to this fan base about his potential. We don't know any more about Luke Evangelista this season than we did after last season. We are right where we were at the end of last season. You can't have that if you are trying to figure out what is a piece moving forward. You can't have that. You and I had a conversation before the show. We were talking about Spencer Stastny. First of all, we love Spencer Stastny, but Spencer Stastny has had a couple rough games. He had a couple real rough moments in the St. Louis game. Emma and I did point out that this is tax season. It's his busy time.
Yes.
And so we were like, okay, well, Jordan Osterley's going to be back in. Here's my thing. I want to see Spencer Stastny in the lineup even after a bad game over Jordan Osterley, because we need to know more about Spencer Stastny than 2 games. We don't know any more about these young guys.
And part of it, like, if you're trying to get a real good idea of who a player is, like what his game is like, it's seeing how he deals with the adversity. Like, how does he get out of, how does he pull himself out of it? And sometimes, yes, like sometimes, okay, you bench a guy for one game, he gets his mind right, you bring him back, he's fine. But and sometimes that is the case, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes you need, I mean, like, that's not even hockey, that's life. It's not like every time something bad happens, you get to be like, all right, pause. I'm just going to go sit over here for a few days and just not have to deal with it. And then I'll come back when, when
Right.
I'm ready. It's like, that's not how it works. You got to deal with the tough stuff too. And that's part of being a pro. And, whenever you talk about guys be like, oh, he's a real pro, he's a real pro. A lot of that is how they deal with the adversity. And it's not meant to be a criticism of Stastny for like not knowing how to deal with adversity. It's like, he's not being given a chance. None of these guys are. So it's just, I worry about their development, not just as players, like in their skill development, but like as people and as pros.
And we learned that from life coach Kevin Lankinen.
Yes.
Yes, we did. Coming up, we're going to wrap up our recap of this weekend's game, and then we're going to take a look ahead. It's Monday. We got to brace ourselves and plan for what's coming up for the Nashville Predators. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, wait a minute, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and plan your long-term financial goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, Emma, do want to give a little shout out to Kiefer Bellows. Nice goal, Kiefer Bellows in the Toronto game. And also Michael Bunting. Welcome. Not only was it Michael Bunting's first goal as a Nashville Predator, it was his first goal without an appendix, and it was his first win without an appendix with the Nashville Predators. Oh my gosh. He's probably so tired of hearing about his appendix, as tired as UC Soros was about hearing about his double cup last season.
Oh my gosh. I said this. So obviously Bunting, played in Toronto before he went to Carolina and then Pittsburgh. But so of course, when the Hockey Night in Canada media is in town and the Toronto media, they all go to the former Leafs, and they go to Bunting, and I'm listening to him. I'm like mouthing along with the story of his appendectomy as he's telling it, because I'm like, this poor man has been asked about this so many times since he's been here, like how it happened, how did he know, where was he, when did he go to the hospital? I'm like, I can now tell you all of these things because he has had to relay this so many times. But when he said it out loud after the game, we were talking to him, feel good to get your first goal with the Predators. He goes, well, yeah. Also good to get my first win with the Predators. And it didn't even occur to me until he said that we were like, oh dear God. It's like, you got traded here like 3 weeks ago and you still haven't won a game until tonight. I'm so sorry. But yes, it's he's got another little mini homecoming here this week. He's going to when the Preds go to Carolina, because that was his last team before Pittsburgh. But yeah, I was just like, oh my gosh, it was your first win. Bless your heart.
Bless. Be strong and courageous. You're going to need it. Microbunting. You're going to need it. The other shout out that I feel like we need to give is to Mama Evangelista. You know what? I know hockey players actually execute the game on the ice, but let's talk about the people who really get it done behind the scenes. And I think that spouses and family members, so overrated. Mama Evangelista came to town from Toronto. She cooked for Luke. And look what happened. She's like the Chef Boyardee of the NHL. Thank you, Mama Evangelista. Please don't ever go home. We need you.
I saw because of course, not only did they win, Luke gets, a goal, and was it 2 assists or just 1 assist? I think.
Yeah, he had a goal and 2 assists. Yep.
Goal and 2 assists. He was on Hockey Night in Canada. I thought that was funny afterwards when he was the first star of the game, but Filip Forsberg did the bench interview with Kara Hammer. And he said, I'm sorry you got me because Luke is overdoing Hockey Night in Canada. I'm sure you'd rather hear from him. But I mean, hometown kid from Toronto gets to be on Hockey Night in Canada, like as part of the winning team, like very, very cool for him. But I saw so many people on social media afterwards saying like, can she cook for the rest of the team? Like, please.
They're all sitting around like that scene from When Harry Met Sally, and all the Preds are like, I'll have what she's having.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you all need it. Yeah, you mentioned Michael Bunting in Carolina. Looking ahead, you all, it is not an easy next 7 days. The Nashville Predators have 4 games in the next 7 days. Starting tomorrow night, they are on the road against Carolina. Yeah, we're going to talk about that game. Of course, we'll preview that game on tomorrow's show. We're also going to dive into some Bruno business also as well on that Thursday. Because we haven't had enough game misconducts, we're going to bring the Blues and Predators back again and see how many more guys can get thrown out. Yeah, Thursday at home, Blues, Preds, spicy. These games are spicy, Emma.
61 total penalty minutes on Sunday between the Blues and the Preds. So, yeah, Thursday is going to be fun. Thursday's going to be real fun. And then, of course, Tuesday, in Carolina, you have to deal with Mark Svechkov, as he is now known. He scored again, by the way, against Anaheim on Sunday.
I wonder, has he missed a shot yet?
Yes, he has now. He is, yeah. So he's washed, obviously.
Yeah.
What a scrub. But no, we're going to see that. And Carolina in general, like, seems like no Rantanen, no problem. They've been doing quite well even after the trade deadline. So this should be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And as if we aren't going to be exhausted enough from those 2 games, Saturday at home versus Vegas. Hey, Jonathan Marchessault, old buddy, old pal. Could do something.
Maybe we start scoring some goals again.
There you go. And then a week from today at Philadelphia. Like, I think we're down to 12 games left, Emma. That's a dozen games. And like I said earlier, we don't know jack about this Nashville Predators roster moving forward.
Sure don't.
God bless Barry Trotz, who is going to have to somehow make offseason decisions based on what the flagnog was that. We don't know any. There's so much to talk about, you all. It's going to be one heck of an off season here. So that's what we have coming up this week. It's going to be a big week. The Nashville Predators they're running out of time to figure it out. And quite frankly, we're not going to believe them even if they do, because at this point, fool me once and all that stuff and all that stuff. Like we said, tomorrow's show, we're going to preview that Carolina game. We will talk some more about Mark Svechkov. We will talk about Brady Shea and his tenure with the Carolina Hurricanes. And we're also going to talk about a very interesting experience we had, sort of getting gaslit sort of getting gaslit. We're going to talk about that on tomorrow's show. So make sure you come back for that. Emma, before we log off on this Monday, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
And you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that is going to do it for this Monday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We hope you have a fabulous Monday. We'll be back tomorrow to talk Carolina, Nashville. We'll see you then.